everyone. Today I have with me writer and script consultant Danny Manus. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Danny. He has a website called No BullScript Consulting, and along with a lot of other things that he's done, I guess that's what you're doing right now mainly, is your business, correct? Well, let me...
About 8 years now.
8 years. That's awesome. But I have to tell you a funny story. So this morning I woke up and I had already done, Danny and I have tried to get together a couple of times, so I did a lot of my research before. But I was like, you know what, I want to watch one of the movies that, you were involved with, right? So I picked In-Lawfully Yours because that was pretty recent, right?
Yeah.
And so it's on Amazon. So for everybody who wants to watch it, and I have 2 books I have to read today, okay? So this is what's going through my head. I'm going to watch a little bit of this movie just so I know what it's about, then I'm going to go back to my reading. Well, guess what never happened today? My reading. That movie was so good. It was really good. I mean, I did not expect it to be not, you know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't like a big movie, like in a...
No, it's a little faith-based, kind of romantic dramedy, but it's really, really cute. I took my mom to the screening, and she laughed, she cried. I was like, all right, we're good. Yeah, it's really, really cute. It's on Amazon, it's on Netflix, it's out there.
Is it on Netflix? I didn't even check.
It's really cute. Yeah.
It is, and I always think, because I am a movie goer, okay? I go to a lot of movies. I try to when I can. I like to go to the movie theater. That's my thing. I'll watch them on devices, but there are movies that slip through the cracks that I don't get to see. So when I saw that I did, I was like, oh, that wasn't too long ago, and I didn't see it, and I loved it, and it was faith-based. But I wanted to ask you, so you were a script consultant on that movie, okay? Yeah. The star of the movie, Jessie, she was amazing. Okay.
She's great. She's been on tons of shows, all over the place. I believe she was on an ABC Family show for a while, but she's adorable, and she has really great comic timing. She was really, really good. I mean, I wasn't on set. I as a script consultant, I worked, with the writer and with the director and the producers on the script before they started shooting. So I only met her briefly at the screening afterwards. But she did a wonderful job. She is very watchable. Yeah,
she really
very
is.
watchable.
She reminds me of Kristen Bell. If I have to say, there's somebody like that kind of comedic timing, kind of look to her, cute. She looks like a younger Kristen Bell to me. But so then that's my question, because you are the first. I shouldn't say that. I've talked to a lot of screenwriters, and a lot of them do script consulting now. Like they were doing screenwriting, and a lot of them have done. But I want to hear from you, if somebody hands you, how do you get hired by somebody like a movie like that? The producer of that movie was Corbin Burns. Was he the... Yeah.
Funny story on that one. I mean, I was a development executive for several years at different production companies. That's how I started. I came out to LA to write like everybody else. But I kind of, I got a job as an assistant and kind of worked my way up through development at a few different companies. And I was doing some script consulting on the side while I was an exec, just for extra money, because that's what execs do sometimes. And so after the writer strike in 2008, a lot of executives lost their job, and so to kind of bide time until I found my next exec job, I didn't love the companies I was doing notes for on the side. I didn't love the way that they did notes, so I kind of decided just to start my own and see how it went, as a side gig, really. But it kind of blew up, and it worked, and I liked being my own boss, and so I kept going with it, and and did that. And since there was a hiring freeze on execs for about a year almost, so. You got to pay rent. And script consulting is a lot like being a development exec. It's the same creative step to reading a ton of scripts, writing a ton of notes, talking with writers. And so I stuck with it. And now, many years later, I teach all over the place, and I speak at different conferences. And so one of the other producers, Cordon Bernsen's producing partner, is named Chris. And his wife, who is also a screenwriter, had seen me speak at a conference and was in one of my classes and really liked me. And like a year later or something, they were looking for some outside, opinions and help on a couple of their scripts. And so she had suggested me to Chris, and Chris contacted me, and that's how it happened. And I've done 2 or 3 scripts with them now. I think another one was either in production or is going into production this fall. But yeah, it was great. They were, they're wonderful people. It's a great company, and I'm working with a couple of other production companies right now, Samara Productions, and a couple others out there. I love working with production companies. But so that, just like many of my writers, they find me through conferences I've spoken at, or film festivals I've spoken at, or at which I've spoken, or social media. And I used to write a lot of articles. I write less articles now, but just a lot of word of mouth. Really, I've been around a while, I guess. Right. And between word of mouth and conferences and classes and just social media, and however people find me. I don't, sometimes I ask, but I don't know how, but they do, thankfully.
That's awesome.
Hopefully they continue to.
So, for all the screenwriters that watch these, I always like to, pick your brain as a script consultant in so you get, they give you a script, or even, for this movie, they give you the script. And so since you did screenwriting, is it that you can identify that there are issues, just based on, you start reading it and you're like, okay, I got to fix, this is what, it's almost like it's such a gift to be able to see what part of a script's working, right? And and yet you're having to tell a writer who wrote it, okay, well, this is working, this isn't working,
I work with writers on a full spectrum, from the first-time writer who's picking up a pen for the first time and just starting to learn, to professional working, produced writers. So you handle it a little bit differently depending on the script and depending on the writer and situation. But it wasn't my time as a writer. It wasn't my skill set as a writer per se that made me a good consultant. It was my skill set as a development exec, and that's how I started the company. Was these notes were coming from an executive's point of view, because look, there, as you said, there's lots of screenwriters or someone who, wrote a script once and then they want to call themselves a script consultant. And, quite frankly, there were so many of them out there. But, when you finish a script and you want to get it out there to Hollywood and you want to submit to companies, you're not submitting to screenwriters. You're submitting to executives and producers and managers. And so getting feedback from someone who has that experience, knows what they are looking for and they will react to, is sometimes even better than going to someone who has only written, a couple of scripts and they don't have any other experience. Now, that's not to say writers shouldn't get notes. That should. I studied screenwriting. I came out to be a writer. I've written a couple things. Nothing that's been, produced. I'm not super fancy, but I've been an executive on lots of things that have been produced, and it teaches you very quickly. Well, not very quickly. It teaches you slowly and over time, actually, what to really look for. My notes now and how I kind of break down or analyze a script is much different than it was 10 or 15 years ago when I started in this business. You just you know so much more. And, now I've read, I don't know, over 6,000 scripts. I kind of lost count. I stopped counting a while back, but over 6,000 scripts. And, I've taken over 3,500 pitches. And, and it just it seeps into you. You can very quickly recognize what works, what doesn't, what needs to be changed, where a story could go, or how to help a writer get there. But yeah, it wasn't as much my experience as a writer, because I didn't. Well, you call yourself a writer, but unless you're, until you're hired to write something or you're selling something, you call yourself a writer, but you're not a professional writer. Mm-hmm. And so I just, started doing writing assignments a couple of years ago, really and that came through consulting and through my contacts as an executive. But it was more my experience just knowing scripts and reading so many and doing so many notes as an executive and so much coverage as an exec and an assistant that kind of grew that skill set.
And I love how on your website you always say, you say on the front page that you use American Idol as, an analogy.
Now, it's so dated. I have to change it. I've been meaning to change it.
But you know what? People my age know what you're talking about. So it's like, okay, you're Simon. You're not Randy. You're not Paula, So, but I love that because, like I said, my generation, I watch that show, every year. But, yeah, he was the guy. He was the bad guy. But you always knew that he knew. Yeah. It was like nobody wanted to hear what he had to say because you knew he was always right. He was, Right. It came out harsh, but he was always right.
I'm not harsh, and another reason I kind of want to change it is, I'm blunt and I'm honest and I'm direct, but I'm never mean. Right. In my notes, I think, maybe when I started, or maybe 10, 12 years ago, I was a little bit, as an exec, a little bit harsher than I am. I've tempered with age, but I am direct and I am honest, and I don't pull punches because Hollywood doesn't pull punches. Mm. And, if you can't take notes from someone who's rooting for you, who's on your side and wants you to become a better writer so that you can succeed, how are you going to take notes from, the people who don't give a crap about you? Right. And so, yeah, you got to look for those people who are going to be unbiased and honest and are experienced, and and that's the best way to get notes. But I'm never cruel or mean or insulting. But I would rather tell a writer, look, you have some talent here, but this story is not a story that you should bother continuing with. Let's move on to the next idea. Let's develop something that's going to really show off what you can do and maybe sell or be more commercial, because this story is not working so well, Mm-hmm. So I'd rather help my writers find that story that's going to make them break through and break in, because most of the time, writers get discouraged. And, they write their first script and it sucks because everyone's first script sucks. Mm-hmm. Unless you are just one of those prodigies out of nowhere, which rarely happens. They get discouraged and they want to keep working on that first script for 7 years until it's perfect. You just gotta stop. You gotta put it aside and write something else if you want to grow and learn and do this professionally. So, success comes when talent meets and voice meets the right story at the right time, plus luck. That's what happens, and you're not going to have success without all of those things happening. And so, my job is to help guide writers to find that right story for their voice, get it to where it needs to be, and hope that it's the right time. For it.
Can you tell, if you get a new writer, right, and you get their first script, can you be like, wow, this person actually, because I know it's a craft, okay? Yeah. That's how I look at it. And that's why it's tough to get right your first time, because there's so many things to know. And I've heard other screenwriters say, as much as there is to know, there are a lot of rules you can break, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. But for the most part, it's a craft. And so can you get somebody's first script and just be like, whoa, now that's good? Like, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over time, you learn, there's that thing people say executives are only going to read the first 10 or 15 pages, and it's true. To be honest, I've gotten pretty good even in pitches. Even when I get pitches, I can tell in 60 seconds usually if somebody can write.
Wow.
I can tell in a first page if you can write. Sometimes it takes less than that. Now, sometimes I'm proven wrong, and the first page is amazing, and then by page 50, it sucks.
Right.
But that's why I keep reading.
Right.
But yeah, sure, I can tell in a page if someone has the potential to really be a strong writer or not. Right. But it is something you learn over time. It is a craft. It's not easy by any means. I always say, people are like, oh, screenwriting's easy. Anybody can write a screenplay. Look at all the crap that Hollywood puts out. No, it's not, that's not true. But B, screenwriting, to write a script is easy. To write a great script is almost impossible. And that's the difference, anybody can write a script. You want to write a script in the next 48 hours? You can do it, sure. It's gonna suck. It's not, sure. But to make a great script, to write a great script, that's really hard. It's really hard. And takes a lot of practice and time and effort and learning and reading and writing and watching. And it's not something you do overnight. And people, writers need to be prepared, if you want to do this as a career, to put in the time and put in the effort, because it's not easy.
It's funny because I've not written one, so I'm just a watcher, okay, and I love talking to you guys. But I have to say, like, the more I talk to screenwriters and authors, I'll sit down to watch The Flash. Right? Mm-hmm. With my sons. And all of a sudden bad lines start happening, and I'm like, oh, God, and I'm sure, and I'm on a minor scale of just paying attention to dialogue, and I'm sure, for you, you sit down and watch any show and you just, right away, you're like, oh, God,
let's say, being in the entertainment
and by the way,
industry.
The Flash, I like The Flash, but I'm just saying, I could pick out a bad line, it's it sticks out, It's
hard to watch movies and TV when you're inside. You love it so much, but you're right. I have to, if I go to the movies, I have to turn my brain off most of the time, because I'll be sitting there that's the end of the first act. Oh, okay, well, I know that line's going to lead. That's a foreshadowing line to something that's going to come back later, and I would have written that line differently. That could have been tighter. Yeah, because it does ruin you a little bit for the magic of movies, but that's also how I know when I'm watching a great movie or reading a great script is I forget about that. And I'm just enjoying myself and in the experience of the film, and I'm not thinking about, my consultant hat or my writer hat. I'm thinking about my movie lover hat and my TV, I'm a TV whore. I watch everything. So, I put that hat on, and I'm able to enjoy it. But yeah, that's hard. When you read so many scripts and this is what you do, it's hard not to be overly critical of everything.
I have to tell you a funny story. I was at Moana, right? And I have to tell you that as, I've talked to more of you screenwriters and find out different things, Disney almost does the exact, their first act, second act, third act is so dead on. They like that formula. They're dealing with little kids. They like that. Well, I took my 4-year-old grandson, and at one point he looked at me and he was like, oh, Grandma, this is so boring. And I was like, in about 5 minutes, this is going to pick up, okay? Like, you can almost time a Disney movie, and I was right,
There is a structure to storytelling. It is a thing, and they know their audience. But
right.
Moana made $1 billion,
Right.
and it was a great film. I know the writer.
It was a great movie.
It was great. It's my niece's favorite movie. She still watches it every other day. And so it did its job and was new and different. But things you have to know structure, and you have to know the rules before you can break the rules.
Nice. I like that. That's almost a quotable. I like that. You got to know them.
I say that all the time. You can't. Everybody is like, well, I don't want to do structure. Hollywood is so formulaic. I want to do something that's never been done before. And you know what? You're not going to. You have to master the rules before you can break them. You have to learn how to walk before you can run. Yes, people say there aren't rules. They're guidelines, which I like better than saying they're rules. But, some things that kind of are rules, and you can break them in your own ways, and that's part of finding your voice. But when you're starting out, you gotta, play by the rules a little bit so that you're not laughed out of the room and so that people will read your script. But bring your creativity and voice and style and personality to the rules,
right?
To the guidelines and to structure, and you'll still stand out.
Right.
It's not one or the other. I one of my other quotables, and I say it in all my classes, is, your job as a writer is not to run from the cliche. It's just to make it seem not cliche. That's your job. Boy meets girl or boy meets boy, is still a standard. It's still a premise that you're going to use, but what are you going to do with it that's going to make it totally different, that's going to make your story totally different? So you don't have to run from those cliches. You just have to create something that's going to take it in a totally new direction.
Yeah, and even in In-Lawfully Yours, like, of course I knew, if somebody would have said, well, how do you think this is going to end? I could have probably told you. I could have probably told you how it was going to end, but I rooted for it. I still liked it. The characters were enjoyable. Mary Lou Henner is Mary Lou Henner. Like, you got, it was still enjoyable. Okay? So I like those romantic, whatever they call them, rom-coms or whatever, whatever you want to say. Like, do I usually know how it's going to end? Yes. There was a movie a couple of years ago with Jennifer Aniston and the guy that she was saying, I can't even remember his name, big guy. But anyway, they did a romantic comedy, and they didn't end up together, and I left that movie theater pissed. What was it?
The Breakup. The Breakup.
Yes.
Vince Vaughn. Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, good for them, but no,
It's funny because, that was one of the, maybe not the last, but, one of the last romantic comedies that kind of did well, because it kind of went out of fashion for a while. But Hollywood went through this phase where for like 5-6 years, the Hollywood ending was dead. And the new Hollywood ending was the anti-Hollywood ending.
Right.
But then everybody started getting depressed because all of the films were ending on a sour note or a sad note or a not happy note. And people were like, no, we come to Hollywood for our happy ending that we don't get in real life. And so Hollywood went, okay, we'll do happy endings again. But everything's kind of cyclical.
Right.
And it's whatever works best for your story. I teach a class called Writing Your Natural Story, and part of that is kind of knowing and realizing what the natural blueprint of your story is. Because I think that every story is born with its own natural blueprint of where it could go or should go. If your story is that that your daughter is kidnapped by terrorists and you have to go save her, then the end of the story is you save her. You know, she is saved. You know, that's the natural end to that setup and story. And so every setup comes with a natural payoff. It's just about finding it and getting there in a really interesting and compelling way.
Yes.
And sometimes it's great to do twists, you know, to kind of throw off that ending. But in the end, you're probably going to get, you know, to the place that feels right for that story. And that's what makes audiences happy.
Yes.
Not that it has to be a happy ending,
right,
but a satisfying ending to the setup in that story. Not happy, but satisfying.
Right. Well, when I was looking at your IMDb and I saw that you were involved, it was a movie called Just Add Water, right? Mm-hmm. And I just went through the
poster right there.
Oh, there we go. I went to look at it and I'm like, that girl looks familiar. And then I realized it was Amanda Bynes. And I was like, oh, that's what she used to look like back in 2008.
That was Sydney White. Yeah, that was Sydney White. Different movie, but yes.
Oh, was it different? Sydney White. You're right. I wrote that down. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes. That was her last movie before stuff happened. Yeah,
it was just weird that I didn't recognize her as that girl that I knew back in the 90s and to early 2000s or whatever. But, sorry, I did write that. I did get that confused. But, yeah, it was interesting that I saw her picture and I was like, I know that. Who is that? And I'm like, oh, my God, that's Amanda Bynes back in the day.
It was a cute movie, too. It didn't do as well at the box office as we would have liked, but there was a very specific reason, two very specific reasons for that. I stand by that film. If you watch it, it's cute, it's funny. Danny Strong is in it. You know, Danny Strong is the writer, Emmy-winning and Oscar-winning writer of some great films and Empire on TV, and he's a magnificent writer. But he was an actor first, and there's some really great people in that movie, but it failed because the producers and everyone involved in the studio could not decide on what demographic exactly that we were going for. And it was an issue because Amanda had a certain demographic that flocked to her movies, but it was a film set in college, not high school. So it was very hard to write a college movie genuinely for a PG audience, for an actress, who wanted a PG-13, fan base, and, some of the jokes just didn't connect, and, the college setting felt really a little bit cheesy because we couldn't do it in an adult or, older teen way. It had to, it had to be appropriate for 10 and 11-year-olds. And so, it was a problem. The director, the producers, the actor, the studio, all had a different take, and the writers certainly, all had a different take on where they saw the tone of it. And I got a little confused, and I think that made people unsure of who this movie is for. And it was originally titled, little tidbit, it was originally titled Sydney White and the Seven Dorks. And my old boss, Clifford Werber, who's the producer, we still think we should have kept that title because it would have made the tone and demographic clearer. But, you can only make a movie once. Actually, that's not true. In Hollywood, you can keep making the same damn movie, just reboot it 10 years from now, and we could do it again. But
exactly. But that's what happens with those child stars anyway. It's really difficult for them because as they're growing older, their audience kind of doesn't grow old with them. And Amanda Bynes was this certain person on Nickelodeon and or Disney, one of them, whatever. But she was that person. It's hard to translate, and it doesn't happen very often either with those.
No, our company, before we did Sydney White, we did Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff, and so that was the same thing.
I saw that. I love that movie.
Yeah, everybody. That was a huge hit.
That was a huge hit. I had that movie
for $100 million at the box office. It was a big hit, and it made people a lot of money. Not me. I didn't work at the company at that time, but
I did see that. But yeah, I had that movie because I had daughters that were right in that age group, and they watched it over and over and over again. So
yeah.
But anyway, I want to tell everybody. So your website is amazing. I mean, I loved it. It's fun. It's and for people out there who want to write a screenplay, and you're going to need help. Like you are.
I work with TV writers and book writers as well, especially if you're a book writer who is looking to adapt to a screenplay and want to know if your film or if your book idea or your book could be or should be a film or a TV series. I've been working with a lot of book writers lately on that because adaptations are, of course, still one of the biggest things in Hollywood. And so I do a lot of that as well. So yeah, whether you're a first-time writer or a 100th time writer, I'm happy to help and work with you. And there's plenty of different services on there, from query letters, just classes on there on demand, and I'll be adding some more soon in the next couple months.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think I'll be I'm planning on doing an online course this summer. I haven't set out the registration yet, but it's coming soon. So you can always go to my site and kind of go on the mailing list, subscribe to the mailing list, and you'll get all the information on all upcoming classes and events and conferences and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and that's awesome for people who aren't in LA. Like, I love that when you guys have, like, webinars out there, because, people are hungry for that. And any kind of writer, because storytelling is storytelling. And like you said, like, I have a lot of authors who people will say, like, editors will say, this isn't a book, this is a movie. And then they'll go try to make it a movie, and they go, this isn't a movie, this is a book.
Yeah. Yeah. I teach a new class called Everyone Says This Should Be a Movie. And that's what I hear from book writers is everyone says this could be a movie, and unfortunately 90% of them are wrong, but some can. But yes, I love doing the webinars. In fact, this morning I had a call where we set up a webinar for writers in Poland that I'm doing in June. So
awesome.
It's I love that. I've had writers, clients on 6 continents.
Nice.
So if anybody knows any writers in Antarctica, let me know, and I will give them free notes if they can prove that they live in Antarctica. I will give them free notes, just so I can say that I've had clients on all 7 continents.
That's awesome. It was so much fun talking to you, Danny. I'm so glad we got together. I'm so glad I watched that movie. It was amazing, and and people can go on there and look. I mean, your movies, like you said, they're on Netflix or on Amazon, and good luck with everything. And I'm so happy, what you're doing.
Thank you, and the website is NoBullScript.net. www.NoBullScript.net. Although if you do .com, it'll take you there too.
Well, we will be listing it, so no issues. They'll be able to just go right to there, and we'll have all your info underneath here for anybody. And good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.